Thank you so much. 30,000 views over the last 2 weeks for the Student Body Right USC podcast and the Put on Raiders podcast here on the Put on Waivers Media Group. We appreciate all that. Have a great Thanksgiving as well. So do me a favor. Let the views match the subs and subscribe to the channel. Keeps all this stuff free for you guys. So keep that thing popping and rolling. We appreciate that. Now we're head over to the Put on Raiders podcast where Ryan and I talk about the Broncos game and then preview the Seahawks game and maybe some off-season activity for the Raiders who are now 3-7. All right. Peace. And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Student Body Right USC podcast, along with the Put on Raiders podcast, along with everything else. So this basically is going to be like, we're going to do this every week. Probably it's called the mix. So we're going to mix. We do a lot of Trojan stuff. We do a lot of Raider stuff. We do some San Francisco Giant stuff as well. So we're going to do a little bit of that every week. Probably just a kind of a quick rundown of what's going on with those three situations. And those are the three situations we'd like to cover here on the Put on Waivers Media Group on this channel. Thank you for joining us again. If you will. Right now, USC getting ready for a battle against Notre Dame. Notre Dame has won about 4 in a row, probably the longest win streak in this rivalry for a long time. I watched a bunch of Notre Dame tape. I watched a bunch of USC tape. Obviously, throughout the whole season, whatever. I kind of feel like this is a game where is the only chance they have. Notre Dame really is to have that defense kind of turn the Trojans over a bunch of times in this game, at least 2 or 3. The Trojans have not turned the ball over a lot at all this whole offseason, so I don't really expect, this whole season, so I don't expect a bunch of turnovers in this game, and Notre Dame that hasn't shown the propensity to be that kind of defense where they turn somebody over. And I don't know if that's something that Caleb Williams doesn't really turn the ball over as much as he handles the ball with picks. And even when he gets sacked, the times that he actually does get hit, times he actually does get sacked, he doesn't turn the ball over. So I look for the Trojans to kind of win this game. Probably like 38-28. But the one thing that does prevail in this game for me is because you look at this game and you see a lot of different things. So one, the special teams unit, this is where it's a little bit dangerous for the Trojans because you're saying to yourself, oh my God, this is actually a situation here where the Trojans could give up something here on special teams because they usually don't. The Trojans don't have great special team unit, but don't have a great special teams unit. They have been kind of poor on special teams all year. Lincoln Riley has talked about the fact that he's not going to allocate a head, a coordinator for special teams. So I told him, me and Ryan would definitely do that job if he ever needs a special team coach because we love special teams, but he doesn't want to do that. So we understand the fact that he doesn't want to go out and do that for the Trojans. That's fine. It hasn't cost them so far. This is the one game where it could cost them because this team and the Fighting Irish are great at blocking punts. They're great in coverage. They do a lot of different things on their special teams. They have one of the best special team coaches and special team units in all of college football. So that can be a problem for USC in this game. But for the most part, as long as they stay clean in the special teams unit and it's just offense, defense, they should be fine in this ball game. It could be a game where maybe like the Cal game where it's close for a while, maybe like the Washington State game, close for a while because they do have some talented players on defense and offensive line. They have one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in football, in Mayer. Reminds people jokingly call him Baby Gronk, but he does have great hands. He can do a lot of different things. And that running back by committee, that three-headed running back they have at Notre Dame is something to worry about because if they get like a 7-point lead or a 10-point lead, or maybe they can flip the middle 8 where they score the end of the half and then get the ball back, that could be an issue. But I felt a little bit better about the Trojans because I felt like Charbonnet could have went nuts again. Could have got nuts in the UCLA game. I thought in the UCLA game that he might go nuts in that game. He didn't go nuts in that game. They were able to just kind of slow him down just a little bit. I know 5 yards of carry isn't great, but he didn't have 100 yards in the ball game. Maybe the game dictated that. Maybe Chip Kelly felt like I got to throw now because I'm down by 2 scores against USC. I only panic like that when it's a three-score game, not when it's a two-score game. But that's just me. Some coaches feel like the necessity to go and get rid of their game plan if they're a running team, start passing all the time if they get down by two scores. But that is what it is. I think they're going to do enough against the run game. I think they're obviously the two things that USC's defense does very well is they give up yards, they give up chunk plays, they do all those things, but they do turn people over. You can't even. I mean, they lead the nation in turnovers, and they're one of the, and they have the college football's leader, in Thule, who leads everybody in sacks. So that's something to look at as well. That defensive line, and I think that not facing a guy who can maneuver like DTR or not, not moving around like Cam Rising. Like he doesn't, Pine doesn't have that, ability to do those things. So I think that's where USC comes in and maybe some blitzes and doing some things like and doing some things on the back end to kind of on third and long to have them hold the football just one more second, hold that football one more heartbeat, so the pass rush can get there for the Trojans, and they can maybe cause another turnover because they're good at that. I mean, the Trojans are really good at turning teams over, taking the ball away. They're also good at rushing the passer, so we'll see if those two things come to fruition. I think the one thing I would be worried about is yes, getting behind by multiple scores against this team. I would be against Notre Dame. I'd be worried about that just a little bit because you know those running backs are for real. That offensive line is for real. That offensive line has pearls on it. So that'll be a tough spot. But I think when people like Joe Klatt and everybody else, I think Joe Klatt even said that game could be a runaway game for the Fighting Irish. The Fighting Irish running away from everybody winning this game. The Irish are probably one of the weirdest teams in all of college football. A close game with Navy. They lose to Stanford, they lose to Marshall, but then they basically shut out Clemson. I mean, they're just kind of that up and down weird team. I think Freeman has done a good job of kind of settling down the talks. I mean, there were talks after they lost some of these close games early in the year that he should just go. I mean, he can't handle this. It's time to move on from him already in year one. And God knows Notre Dame has enough money to do that if they really wanted to. But giving him an opportunity, they have a quarterback. They have a quarterback coming in the next couple of years. They do need to get dynamic quarterback play. And I think when I say the dynamic quarterback play, not having just a guy who is just a careful thrower of the football, like a pocket passer. You got to have. It's almost like a necessity now. You got to have a dual threat guy. If Notre Dame's going to take that next step, whether they win this game or lose this game, they gotta have a guy who can take it to the next level with his legs. And Pine isn't some guy who is an absolute statue back there. He's not a statue back there. He can make some plays with his feet, but that's not. He wants to get rid of the ball and get rid of the ball on time. As soon as that back foot hits, he wants to get out. He wants to get that ball out, and that's what they want to do in their passing game. So for USC, get Notre Dame in third and longs on the back end. Like just find if somebody else beats you in the passing game, I can live with it. But don't have another Dalton Kincaid game. We don't need that. You find where 87 is. At all times. Jake Bobo last week, they did a great job against Jake Bobo last week. He didn't go nuts in that game. People thought he was going to go nuts against USC. He did not in that game. So I give them a lot of credit for that. Not letting that happen. So do the same thing this week. You have to hit him in the line of scrimmage. You got to bump them. You got to make sure, when you blitz, you do cover the inside routes because that's the first thing that quarterbacks look for on blitz packages, and force the ball outside. You got Kalen Bullock back there. Maybe he can get a pick. So I'm looking at 38-28. You got 38-28 for SC to kind of win this game, and hopefully they continue their path to the college football playoff. A lot of people are all upset and going crazy and nuts about where they are. They're right now. USC is 6th behind LSU. Listen, it's always going to be an SEC party until proven otherwise. That's fine. I don't really care about all that SEC stuff. I just saw Mississippi State go out there and beat Ole Miss, and Ole Miss was supposed to be one of these quality wins for some of these teams. So as far as that goes, who cares? But I think at the end of the day, take care of your business and force the committee to tell a 12-1 SC team they don't belong. Just force them to do that. If you force them, if you can force them to do that, that would be amazing. And I don't know, I don't see how they would be able to do that in this game, in this climate here. I think if you have a 12-1 SC game, SC team with 3 consecutive wins against 3 ranked opponents. I mean, SC has more. SC would have had more wins against ranked opponents than some of these SEC teams that everybody wants to make all world. So take it from there as far as that goes. So I think SC just wins their games, take care of their business. Looks like it might be Oregon, but Oregon's going at Oregon State in a rivalry game. You know how that goes. So that could be they could end up playing Washington. They could end up playing Utah again. Who knows? But I think that at the end of the day, they might be playing Oregon. I think Oregon's just a little bit notch above Oregon State, and we'll see what happens. Whether they have to win their game, no matter what happens, they're in the championship game. They're going to Vegas regardless. Be kind of cool to see USC play on the Raiders football field out there and out there in Allegiant. That'd be kind of cool. But as far as the championship goes, the college football playoff goes, just take care of your business, and then let me see the committee say no to a 12-1 SC, 12-1 USC team, because USC basically represents West Coast football, and when they're good, they usually will get the votes. You can't tell me about their defense stuff like that. You got to give it to them. Switch over to the Raiders now as we kind of go through this in the mix. So the Raiders win. The tankathon stops just a little bit here for the Raiders. Everybody wanted to see the tankathon, but I think the thing that really kind of I think the Raiders are gonna win as many games as they possibly can, because this coach needs to show that he has not lost the team. I think Michael Lombardi said, look how hard the team plays for him. I kind of throw out everything that Michael Lombardi says about the Raiders because his son is the offensive coordinator. So, he's couple of places where he's a little biased is where it comes with his son, and then probably the Patriots, right? So I like him, but he's kind of a little biased there. The guy knows a lot about football, but I mean, it's just inherent bias as far as that goes. They're not going to tank. They're going to play hard. You can see by the, even them going at Seattle this week, they're only a 3.5 point dog in that game. You would think Seattle would be a little bit more. I think Seattle's coming off a bye week as well. So look for a really close game there. I think the one thing that kind of just bothers me, and I think we talked about that on the Put on Raiders podcast, is just nothing in the backfield besides Jacobs. And you keep all these running backs for what reason? I have no clue. I can't even get a series for Britton Brown. I can't get a series for Zaire White. You can't get any of those things. So just not having that is kind of crazy, especially when you're 3-7. And if you're trying to save these guys for next year when you get a beefed up offensive line, then that's on you. I can't really speak on that as far as that goes. They've done a bad job with this roster. I think that's pretty clear. They did not. They didn't keep. They could have kept Trayvon Moore. They could have kept Trayvon Mullen. They could have kept Darius Phillips to have depth right now instead of having these street corners on this football team right now. But a bunch of street corners on this football team right now. Undrafted free agents, all this stuff like that. You can't have that on a football team. It's just embarrassing to have that from where this team started. You look at Demarcus Robinson is having a great time playing with Lamar Jackson out there with the Ravens. You don't think the Raiders could have used his ability on the outside right now? We're playing Mac Hollins, Mr. No Shoes out there. I mean, he's not a second wide receiver. I mean, he's barely a receiver. Let's just be honest as far as that goes. Can I see DJ Turner? We talked about that as well. I mean, Keenan Cole is is not anything special to write home about. And whenever they go three wide, he drops the ball a lot. That's the one caveat I'll give David. I'll give Derek Carr is that I would not trust 84 because 84 does not give you the football. It does not advance the football because he doesn't catch the football consistently. That's the one guy who I would be like, I really got to throw to this guy every time. I mean, he missed him on a post route, threw it, 85 yards over his head, but that's neither here nor there. But as far as that goes, I do like the fact that Devontae Adams is getting more involved every week. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Had a couple touchdowns in this ball game. The over route, and then he kind of cut it back to the backside. Good job by them. I really think this thing they could have seen that earlier. That'd been nice and earlier in the game. I mean, there's still 16 points going into overtime, so it's not nothing to write home about this offensive unit. So Moreau could get involved, and they got to do something offensively to kind of get this thing popping, get this thing going. I don't know when Derek is going to be more of an efficient passer in the first quarter. It seems like he always misses the boat in the first quarter. It looks pretty bad in the first quarter all the time. Just not a good look as far as that goes. Like you put yourself behind the eight ball every time, and that's not a really good thing for the Raiders going forward. But you can't, because I think when you have those zeros in the first quarter, it just hurts. I mean, when you get some points in the first quarter, then getting to 27, getting to 30 is a little bit easier. On the defensive side of the ball, I mean, it's basically a wait till next year approach for me. I get enjoyment out of watching Max Crosby, and that's pretty much it as far as the defense goes. I mean, they will get Nate Hobbs back this week. Hopefully, they're thinking about. Hopefully, that injury is healed up. I know he comes off. He's eligible to come off of IR, so we'll see if he's active for the game. I think everybody likes Nate Hobbs, so hopefully he can kind of give this secondary a little bit of a boost going forward. I think it'd be a close game. I think they'll fight up in Seattle. I don't think Seattle's a great team, but Seattle is a pretty good team. They're better than they have in the past, and I give Seattle credit. They pretty much won the Russell Wilson deal. They won it. They won it overwhelmingly. They won it. It's unbelievable. So they won that going away. They'll have that pick, have a couple of picks from Denver, and then they strap Denver with that huge contract that Russ just signed a couple of weeks ago, which I'm surprised that, I feel like the Walmart dudes, I mean, coming into this thing, I mean, they should have at the very least, took some time and said, hey, do we really want to sign Russell Wilson to this deal? Like, we just got here. We were officially owners of the football team now. We don't have to sign Russell Wilson. You don't have to sign him to a long-term deal. I mean, it looks bad that you traded all those assets and then you try to boot him out the door, but he has not played well. I mean, he's not played well for a while now. So that whole let Russ cook thing is just it was driven by ESPN, and now ESPN walks that back pretty quickly as far as that goes. So Herbert, the Chargers, a rival of the Raiders, and kind of my spiel here. So I'm not gonna. I would definitely, if I could get Herbert and get Herbert instead of Derek Carr right now, I would do it in 2 seconds. But I'll say this about Herbert. He does have to find a way to start winning some football games. And I think that just blaming Staley, just blaming the defense, is people he doesn't do it, but people do it for him, is just disingenuous to the whole process. Like we talked about Derek Carr. Like people go on the internet and defend Derek Carr all day and all night. People will say all these things about Derek Carr and no defense, this and that and the other. There's a lot of teams in the league who don't have good defenses. A lot of teams in the league don't have good offensive lines. Tua has a very bad offensive line. They score a whole lot of points. They only average 1 point less a game than the Raiders do, and they're projected to go to the playoffs now because of their record. Same thing with Herbert. I mean, Herbert basically ended up getting Brian Flores. He ended up leaving or getting fired because he didn't buy into Tua. But somehow, some way, Tua wins games. So even before he got Tyreek Hill, all these other guys. So I think at some point they're 5-5 right now. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the head coaching job, and maybe that's what people think that he needs to do is get a new head coach. I think Staley has not been crazy. Brandon Staley so far this year. He's been pretty okay. His defense hasn't been great, but his offense kind of let him down a lot in these games. They're not scoring a lot of points in the second half. They only scored 7 points in the second half against the Chiefs. They had the Chiefs go up by 3 with a late touchdown to Travis Kelce. He has an opportunity to go 31 seconds left in that ball game with 3 timeouts. Herbert did. Like, that's doable. As much talent as he has around him, he has Palmer, he has Mike Williams, he has Keenan Allen, he has Austin Eckler. And on the first drive of the game, on the first play of the game, the first drive of the last drive, the first play of the last drive, he tries to run up the middle for a scramble and then gets sacked. The one thing you can't have happen, gets sacked by Chris Jones. Next play, INT. He has to play better, and that's not on the offensive coordinator. That's not on. I mean, that sometimes it's just on the player itself, and we have to just call it like it is. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. All right, just that simple. So the Raiders going to Seattle. We'll see what happens there as far as that goes. So we covered on the mix. We covered a little bit of USC, covered a little bit of the Raiders, and I'm going to go a little bit with the San Francisco Giants here. So I'll just say this about the Giants here, and then listen, every offseason is a little different. Every offseason is a little bit different. So you can go out here and do whatever you want, offense to get this offense where it needs to be. This offense needs to be more prolific and have better position. Everyday players on the Giants they need to have some everyday players. Everything can't be a platoon. You can platoon 3 or 4 spots maybe, but a really good offense doesn't platoon as much as the Giants do. Look at the Phillies, look at the world champion Astros. They don't platoon a whole lot, right? Those guys go out there and who's playing shortstop, who's playing second base, who's playing first base. Everybody has their little platoon spots here and there. Usually it's middle infield or center field, stuff like that. Catcher, corner outfield. You can have some of those, but the Giants need everyday players. And I know Aaron Judge visited the family this weekend in San Francisco. That is great. That's wonderful. That's peachy. But what is the plan after Judge leaves? Judge is not going to sign. He's not going to stay there through Thanksgiving and sign with the Giants. He's going to go back to New York, going to go to the Mets, going to go like Tribe Called Quest said, go on a war tour, and then try to go and get the best deal possible. Is it $400 million? Is it $300 million? Is he looking for a Bryce Harper deal? Does he want to get more than Bryce Harper? I mean, those are the conversations you got to have. But what is the conversation in San Francisco if you don't get Judge? If you don't get Judge, what's the conversation? And if you do get Judge, obviously you're looking to spend like $500 million this offseason, because you're not just going to get Judge and just not do anything else. I think the first conversation that Aaron Judge is going to have with the Giants is, okay, if I sign here, what are we doing as far as the rest of the squad? So I do need a little bit of help in this offense, right? He's going to help the offense if he becomes a Giant, no question about it. He hits the ball to all fields. He does strike out a lot, but he's going to hit a bunch of home runs regardless of what team he plays for. And you kind of wage the factor, wage the whole thing about, hey, like, are you getting used if you're the Giants, right? Are you getting used? You can't sit there and say you can't sit there and get used. You got to make sure that this guy is here for this guy you're a legitimate contender for his services. You can't get used here. And then again, what is the plan? And I hate to keep saying it, but what is the plan if you don't get Aaron Judge? I'm hearing that the Giants are in on Correa, in on this guy, in on that guy. That's fine. But you have to make sure you do what you have to do to be ready to pivot if he signs with the Mets, the Dodgers, or the Yankees. That's what the Giants have to do, and it's gonna be a thrilling offseason because you usually don't get a player of this magnitude on your you don't get a player of this magnitude who becomes a free agent, who's on your team, who is who is who's there, who's available for his services. You get it once. You get once in a lifetime. They had Bonds had a relationship with the Giants, so that's how he became a Giant from Pittsburgh. You're hoping that the relationship that he has with his family, whatever it is, like he's gonna get paid wherever he wants to go, but the Giants have to show that they're winners, and they're going to be winners, and they're going to be in it to win it this year. Because at the very least, at the very worst situation, the Yankees were always in the playoffs with Aaron Judge for the most part. They were always in the playoffs, so you have to make sure you're always in the playoffs as well, especially with the expanded playoffs for MLB. So that's it on the mix here on the Put on Waivers Media Group. So we did a little USC, did a little Raiders, did a little Sarasota Giants, and we're just gonna roll out of here now. And we'll see you next time. Don't forget to watch us next week with the Put on Raiders podcast with myself and Ryan Holmes, and then the Student Body Right USC podcast will recap the Trojans and the Fighting Irish here on the podcast. So, all right, take care. Deuces.